We shift now from the IDPs of the north to those right here in and around Colombo. News reports tell us that the heavy rains and floods of the past few days have displaced around 200,000 people, close to the amount displaced by the war. In our next story, however, we take a look at another group of very recently displaced people. Their number may be much smaller, but their experience has been a very harrowing one, having been given just 1 week to leave their homes, which were later demolished by authorities.
On Saturday, the 8th of May 2010, 20 houses in Mews Street in Colombo 2 were demolished by representatives of the Urban Development Authority. As fourth-generation residents of Mews Street, the people had never imagined that their homes would be struck down in such a manner. When the demolition crew arrived, they were given just 2 hours to gather their belongings and leave. People took whatever they could, but many of their things were lost in the rush, including vital personal documents. 5 days later, residents remain helpless about their plight.
මේවා අනවශ්‍ය ගෙවල් කියනවා. කොහොමද අනවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ? මගේ වයස 64යි. මම මේකෙම ඉපදිලා කසාද බැඳලා ළමයි හම්බෙලා ළමයිගේ ළමයි දැක්කා. මගේ තාත්තගෙත් එක ගණන් බලකොට 75ක් 80ක් වෙනවා.
The land where their homes once stood has now been fenced off. What makes the incident more incomprehensible is that all 20 of the affected families had property deeds in their possession, granted to them in the early 1980s by the then government. They had also been making tax payments until the very end. Yet neither the property entitlements nor tax payments were able to prevent their eviction or their homes from being razed to the ground. They had first been informed of the possible eviction 4 days earlier, when officials of the Urban Development Authority had summoned a meeting and told them they would have to leave. They were promised temporary plank houses in Totalanga, several kilometers away, until new houses were built for them in 8 months' time. As this was not an acceptable alternative for the Mews Street residents, they had asked for more time. The only response they got for this request was the arrival of the demolition squad.
රටක් කියාම සාමාන්‍ය ඩෙවලොප්මන්ට් එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. පොඩි පොඩි ගෙවල් ලොකු වෙන්න ඕනේ. එම රට දියුණු වෙන්න ඕනේ. එම්මෙන් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. අපි කියන්නේ අපිට සාහනයක් කරන්න. කරල්ලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ මේ ගෙවල් කෙරුවට අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. අපි යන්නේ නැහැ කියන්නේ නැහැ. අපිට දෙන සාහනේ හරියට දීලා අපි වයින් කරන්න.
අපි පොත් බෑග් ඔක්කොම ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒගොල්ලන් කැඩුවා අපේ පොත් බෑග් ඔක්කොම යටුට දැන් අපි දවස් 5ක් විතර යනවා ඉස්කෝලේ ගිහිල්ලා නැහැ.
The abrupt developments have put these people's lives in disarray. Rendered homeless overnight, their future is suddenly uncertain, and their faith in the government and its institutions has taken a huge plunge. The residents of the 20 demolished houses are part of a community of mostly Muslim families, occupying 108 houses in Mews Street. Many of them are self-employed as small-time entrepreneurs. Along with their homes, which they have built and improved through years of hard work and sacrifice, several businesses such as this were also lost, making the blow on their lives even harder to take.
හොඳට සුපිරියට ජීවත් වෙච්ච මිනිස්සුනේ මෙතන ගෙවල් 20ම ඉන්නේ. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ පාරට ආවම ඒගොල්ලෝගේ සම්පූර්ණ ඒගොල්ලෝ අනාථ වෙලා ඉන්නේ දැන්. දැන් ඒගොල්ලන්ට කියලා ඇඳුමක් තියාගන්න තැනක් නැහැ.
It's clear who the people are levelling their accusations against. The downpour in Colombo did nothing to dilute their emotional and angry feelings that day. Hundreds of Muslims left the mosque after the regular Friday prayers to demonstrate against the unfair actions, call for justice, and ensure that there should be no such incidents in the future. In the wake of the Mews Street demolitions, residents in the Slave Island area, together with the support of politicians and activists, have formed the Colombo Residents Protection Foundation. They are determined to stand up against the authorities and against such rash and inconsiderate actions in the future.
අපේ ඉල්ලීම මේ මිනිසුන්ට දැන් නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරිය කියපු වගේ අවුරුද්දක් ඇතුළත ගෙවල් හදලා දෙන්න ඕනේ. රුපියල් 60,000ක් කිව්වා දෙන්නම් කියලා මාසික කුලි රුපියල් 60,000ක් මදි. අපිට අඩුම ගානේ රුපියල් 15,000ක්වත් උවමනායි. ඒ වගේම මේ වගේ මේ නිවාස තිබුණා තටු 2 3 නිවාස. ඒ නිවාසෙ මිනියන්ට නිවාස 2 බැගින් ලබා දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම මේකේ කඩවල් තිබුණා. මේ ව්‍යාපාරයක් වශයෙන් කරගෙන ගියා. ඒ ව්‍යාපාරයෙන් කඩවල් ලබා දෙන්න ඕනේ.
අපි මේ රටේ ජනතාවට කියන්නේ මේ රටේ ජනතාව බල කරන්න ඕනේ ආණ්ඩුවට මේ අසාධාරණයට එරෙහිව නැගී සිටින්න. අසාධාරණයට එරෙහිව නැගී සිටීම තුල විතරයි තමන්ගේ අයිතීන් දිනා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
The first step for the evicted now is to make sure they get the promised compensation. The Colombo Residents Protection Foundation is therefore calling on the Urban Development Authority to deliver.
These are verbal agreements and these are verbal promises. We don't have any faith in this government and we don't take any words from these UD officials. We will wait for another 1 or 2 days. If these things will not come to a new paper, if this is not put into a black and white paper, we will be taking legal actions.
The Urban Development Authority is now vested under the Ministry of Defence, a recent development following the general elections of April 2010. YATV's attempts to obtain the views of the UDA have been unsuccessful. But there is speculation that the Mews Street evictions are the first in a series of moves planned by the government to free prime real estate as part of a recently announced 10-year zoning plan commencing this year. While there is little disagreement over the need for improvements in the city and the government's plans to introduce them, such development must in the end have a positive impact on the lives of the people. And this cannot be said of what took place in Mews Street on the 8th of May 2010.
Development, but at what cost? As we move into our second year since the war ended, authorities must be able to prove that their plans for the country actually include its citizens and look after their best interests. That's all we have time for today, but if you have any comments about any of our stories, please write in and share them with us. Thanks for watching No War Zone. I'll see you next week.